So I like to say present. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Hello, where we watching from. This is the online college. We are coming to you from the ballroom of the municipal complex here in Congo Town, where the Liberia Electricity Corporation is launching its Edison Electric Institute and International Programs, the Global Perspective, Electrified Nations Town Hall. So, is a 10-part program here, which includes they are doing it on the projector. So, after the presentation on the projector, told they will step out again by explaining what you've been watching. So, what you see before you there is the projector, and put together qualities of everything, which will help us to give you the clear view of what's happening here today. It's all about the Liberia Electricity Corporation, global perspective on electrifying nations town hall here. The best practices, trends, strategies, opportunities that is attached. So, that all here. Let's say, yeah, what of Liberia. Or thanks for joining everyone on television and or comments. Even to those that are all sitting here, being honest and upfront about what not surmising, coming up with hypotheticals, but the fact is they are very similar to what our CEO did on Tuesday, just talking about the fact that here's what we face. We all want to go to cleaner energy. It takes time, and we need to wait until work through until the appropriate production is there, and we'll continue to build upon that 55% that we have now. I think that's the key thing. We need to do a better job, even in our company, explaining the facts of what we have right now and that we're looking at. I think a lot of people think we're just satisfied sitting there. And I think that's really the key point is that we need to inform better people across the state. Yeah, so basically, what you're using for us around the world is that see storytellers and they should explain. That's in the most part, see, explain in chief. Because explaining every husband. May I comment on any review from your perspective of your politician? And so, related to the politician, oftentimes struggle with maybe getting us to understand what they need. How do you feel trust? How do you get this way back from those people to trust you and to listen to your message and to find those things? You have to be available. You have to be available. You have to be accessible. I'll tell you a short story. 2 weeks ago, I received an email from a sixth grader from Lucas Elementary School near T.R. Anderson School. And this sixth grader said, "Dear Mayor Collins, thanks for all the things you do. But please stop talking about affordable housing. I think we have enough affordable housing." And he went on to say, "This is what we need in Helen. We need a Chick-fil-A." So I responded, this is real. I said, "Dear so. Thanks for your email, and I appreciate you getting involved in the process. However, if you know anybody that has a little Chick-fil-A, Several international partners are back in this war.
This kid has been followed. Think about this was
Yeah, I think zero competition very
We have to be accessible. It's no embarrassment for sixth graders to voice their concern. And so, like how it's said, open and honest communication. I've been misled before, and I spoke to Bob was here in my office, and we talked through the misleading stuff that I went through. So that's why I said we need to be very open, we need to be honest about it, and we need to listen. We need to be accessible. Our leaders need to be accessible. Yeah. This is fantastic, and let's say interesting when we designed this town hall and put together the speakers and Rob Rose, we talked about 17 hours. I don't want to get a conversation with myself. I don't know what you were going to say, but I think what you said is exactly what I think we need to get as we kick off this town hall. To understand the importance of transparency, the importance of trust, the importance of listening, the importance of making. And they come to be responsible. And I think getting those things hopefully here in Liberia and elsewhere around Africa and around the world, the message hopefully get will be, in fact, by the way, this is the first time, in my knowledge, in EI history, and for a city mayor, to have a conversation with a utility executive. So, this is
participate here today for this global perspective on electrified nations town hall. It's one of the led by the Liberia Legislative Corporation. Remember, the Liberia Legislative Corporation in 1973 up to 2023. This is how we celebrate 50th anniversary of the Liberia Legislative Corporation. This is media package of the online television. And needs to get close to. Very important that the energy itself, the demand side. There is a second point around the good product by Professor Olson about how the energy sector is broken types. As you embrace the energy transition of Liberia, look at all various options. Don't focus on specific sectors or silos, but look at all options available, the ones that are most suitable for, like I mentioned before, for the issue you have for your family. Probably the third point is around the configuration of the country, what your country offers naturally. That's going to give you a hint which direction you should take with your energy. So leverage on what's so his name is Michael.
So there's fundamentally three ways of the economy. One is know that there's only once Christmas happens only once a year, and not all of you probably believe in Santa Claus. So let's focus on the other two ways, which are equity and debt, right? And equity and debt, they can be attracted as long as again there's the right regulatory framework and there's the ability to commit on a project and to sell the project to the investors. So municipality bonds or bonds in general can be basically sold privately or publicly, and these are standard agreements whereby the municipalities or also the company can fundraise for specific projects. They can have flavors, they can be green, they can be blue, depending on the specific areas of the energy transition you want to focus upon. And there's a legislation around it, so it's a relatively standard contract that can be replicated if the conditions are there. So absolutely, that's a valid option that also helps sort of revamping the thinking around how fundraising should happen and move away from the donors' support.
Well, thank you, Michael. So I think the key also is that because of the beautiful ecosystem we have in Liberia, there's even an opportunity to create eco-gardens where people will invest in Liberia because of the beautiful environment, beautiful forests, and forest walks. So instead of cutting down the trees, we should save the trees and use the trees as a way to invest in the country. All right, great. So we'll come back. So we're going to now have another video before we go to some of the so one of the things that Mr. Dr. talked about was this idea, we brought it up, about making sure you have not just the right regulatory framework, but you also have the right legal framework. And so because we know the legal framework, to break it down, if you steal power, you break the law, and you need to be punished. And if the punishment is not enforced, that means the legal system isn't working. So we need the legal system to work. So our next conversation is going to be with Glenn Wins. He is the leader of one of the world's largest law firm, Denton. And so I'm going to be having a conversation with him about the importance of the legal system for electricity to work in any country in the world, not just Nigeria.
Hello, welcome to another episode of a series of conversations being recorded as part of the LEC, the Liberia Electricity Corporation, and collaboration on seeing how to help accelerate electrification in Liberia. And this episode will be joined here by Mr. Glenn Wins, Institute of Stanton, who introduced himself now as Denton. And the goal here is to focus on the history around the legal framework that's necessary for really pushing the electricity industry. And we thought that no other person who's better at doing this with the technical expertise, but also the expertise of his company, Denton, who should tell us about their plan. So, Glenn, welcome to this conversation, which is actually going to be played as we speak at the town hall in Liberia in a couple of weeks. So, welcome.
Thank you so much, Horace. I'd love to see you fulfilling your commitment to your father and his request that you help power up Liberia. So it's an honor to be with you always, but this has special importance in it.
Well, thank you so much. Well, so first of all, please tell us a little bit about yourself. Those who don't know where you were born, where you grew up, and specifically your career journey as a lawyer in the energy industry with focus on electricity. How does this all come together?
Well, my career journey was all the result of wonderful random steps. I grew up in Queens, New York, and then later in Nassau County. And I went to school in Connecticut. However, I played on the lacrosse team remember taking a trip down to the Baltimore area to experience Johns Hopkins and some of the lacrosse teams there. And a dear friend of mine lived in Washington. And so I stayed with him and immediately fell in love with the city. So I applied to law school at Georgetown, and when I was there, I joined a firm to earn some money while going through school, and it was an energy and natural resources boutique that actually did quite good work in sub-Saharan Africa. And I ended up doing a tremendous amount of travel in Africa, including Kenya, the Congo, the Ivory Coast, Cameroon, and I loved it and saw the potential for it. If you fast forward, I founded the co-chair of the energy practice at the Denton Small Firm. And our firm is in 82 countries now, including Africa, which I'll get back to in a moment. In the U.S., we have 45 offices. My little group now has 1,200 professionals in it globally. So very much like a little dog with quantum bus stories. And a very dear friend of mine in our law firm is Lord Kennedy, who chairs our Africa region. And he's working with us to develop Denton's in the first truly Pan-African law firm. So we're in many countries right now, and his goal is to really kind of have deeper breadth. So your topic is of tremendous interest to me.
Interesting. Well, you've been around the industry, like you said, for 7 decades. And so based on your experience, both in the U.S., Europe, and elsewhere, what would you say are 3 key elements needed for any country, Liberia, any other countries you mentioned, to develop that electricity industry? What are the 3 key elements people should be doing?
Well, I think one size doesn't fit all globally. It's one thing I've discovered. And I think my greatest concern for sub-Saharan Africa is that a lot of the investment that we see in our other regions, we're probably the largest firm throughout Europe, we might be the largest firm in Asia. We have become a Latin American Caribbean firm, much as we're seeking to do with Africa. But I see more investment in each of those other regions than I see coming in to, especially sub-Saharan Africa. And so I think that one of the real keys is something that you're working on right now with Liberia, and that is to develop an atmosphere that gives investors confidence that their investments will allow them to receive a good return on investment, that there is enough regulatory certainty to make them feel comfortable. So I think those are some challenges right now. Also, there are different resources in each country, so they're not all the same, and certainly not the same as the U.S. I think we have to be mindful of that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so you're talking about the legal, as a lawyer, obviously, clarity of the law and stability of the law and enforceability of the law issues. What barriers do you see in whether you work around building the right legal framework? I know there's no one size fits all, but over the years, I mean, are there places where you've seen people overcoming some of the barriers to having this stable, enforceable legal framework?
I do see it, and it involves a commitment to the rule of law, It involves political stability because when investors look at a potential country to put money into, they don't simply look at the regulatory structure. They do political risk analysis and country risk analysis. And for example, in every country where we're supporting an investor, those are key issues that are front of mind. How stable is the regulatory regime? How likely is it that we can repatriate some of our money if it's an investor from outside the country? And what are the potential obstacles in terms of just having a successful business enterprise? But I think when I talk to my partners in Africa, they're very optimistic about the opportunity for business growth, and they feel many of the countries that are poised to proceed.
One of the things in the industry, both in the US and around the world, you've seen this and heard of this before, is the term leapfrog. And a lot of the times when you hear leapfrogging, it's about business models, it's about technology. But I'm keen to expand the conversation with you and see what are your thoughts on the idea of leapfrogging to more mature legal frameworks. How does such a leapfrogging work?
Well, I think it's a terrific question, and it also represents a strategic opportunity in sub-Saharan Africa, for example, that should be taken advantage of. So globally, we have a clean energy transition underway, but not everyone and not every geography can achieve that in the same way that we have in the United States or countries have in Europe, etc. And we have to remember that for decades, the U.S. was one of the major polluters in the world as we were using fossil fuels to industrialize. And it's not always well received when we urge other countries not to follow the path that we do. But in terms of the potential for leapfrogging now, is that so much battery storage, and we're beginning to develop real, true commercial opportunities. And so I think the opportunity exists in many countries in sub-Saharan Africa to not need to go into the same path that we took of central power plants. I think they can move more in the direction of distributed energy resources, where a tremendous amount of investment is occurring, for example, in the United States, and they can have rooftop solar and battery storage with their homes, and ultimately electric vehicles as the population develops wealth and wants to have greater mobility. And that can be done without having to do the central plan, capital intensive investments. And also, you can minimize the amount of transmission that's moved, because the focus can be on the local level microgrids, individual homes, businesses. So that would be a path that I would urge be very carefully considered.
So in that transition, and I agree with you. In fact, another person we're going to be talking to as part of this series is Wilfred from former investor. We'll be talking about how Montana was developed, electrically speaking. And I think even if you took that pathway, you still need to look at the legal framework, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how would you sort of judge the evolution of the legal framework in the United States, specifically when it relates to this new type of technology? has the legal framework caught up to the technology in terms of the pace, and it shouldn't be something that African governments and countries should think about. Yes, leapfrog the new technology, but make sure you have the right leapfrog the legal framework.
Another great question. I don't think the U.S. model at this point in our evolution is necessarily the best model for sub-Saharan Africa. I think the rule of law, faithfulness to the rule of law, and confidence that investors have should be emphasized. But I think that, for example, in the United States, as we evolve quickly and as technology has changed quickly, we've moved from sort of the interstate model of regulation that existed when most of the statutes that would function under were created. And we're now relying much more on regional power development and also distributed energy resources. So in the United States, our system of energy federalism involves federal preemption of certain interstate issues, but then a patchwork of states that have their own regulatory structures. I think it would be wise in countries going forward to have more of a unified regulatory structure. And I think it's easily achievable. And there are some good models that can be used, not just models that are working in Africa, but models that are working in other developing countries. And World Bank would have a lot of that information. Certainly EEI is probably the best resource to provide examples of effective regulation that encourages investment as opposed to more
innovation
problems
by
with regulation, which tends to discourage investment.
and the CEO of the
I really agree with that.
Electricity Corporation Money Arrow Captain is also here. The future or the future artists are here. Today, so like I told you, this is the owner of the projector. The video you see before you is the projector. And after the presentation, the video presentation can also be done here on the podium, like you watch Michael. Michael Martin, Michael Murray is the president and founder of the Energy Club and author of the Energy Citizenship. Abid Logo is also the president of Maris Energy System and also global ambassador for the EE. And is the Edison Electric Institute. So among captains here, Dr. Lawrence Jones is once again there on the projector. He's also the senior vice president of the International Edison Electric Institute, EER. So it's a very significant here for the energy executive, especially the Liberia Electricity Corporation.
And I like to talk to people in every country that I'm going to and ask them not just what their views are on attracting investment, etc., but what are the geopolitics within the country and within the region. And I think that in Africa, one thing that a team from the United States needs to bear in mind, and I know that you are keenly aware of this because we've talked about it, is that I personally believe that developing the world needs to do much more. The developed world needs to do much more than it has done in in Africa. We're having this clean energy transition. We're bringing technology in that's working elsewhere. We should be investing much more. The funds that were supposed to be set up on the agreements, really haven't materialized at the level that's needed. And I think also we need to have a better understanding in the U.S. and Europe and other locations that have already industrialized that if African nations are going to skip the step of fossil fuels, they're going to need more support from developed nations than we have been getting. And I know that's caused resentment in many African companies and countries, and I think resentment is justified, candidly. So we actually have some empathy and some more than just hackathons. I think we actually need to put dollars behind what we are urging and technology and serious investment. I think that the urgency of climate change will cause some of these things to occur now more quickly than they have in the past. At least that's my opinion.
The speakers as part of this series is a friend on the side of the who is the as global ambassador for Africa. And one of the things we talked about is technology transfer as part of my new project, if you may, of electricity diplomacy. And you speak directly to that issue. I think we should have funding. I think those are key points. Before I ask my final questions, I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. I want to go back to Denton. You just said that Denton was 82 countries. Has Denton made a decision to enter Liberia, or is Denton already in Liberia?
We're not yet in Liberia, but I have long wanted for you to meet your captain and get to know him, our CEO for our Africa region. And he has been expanding really fast throughout all of Africa. I mean, we have offices in Casablanca and Egypt and other North African countries, but we're in Kenya and Uganda. We're in on the West Coast, some of the countries you mentioned, and I would love to see us grow into Liberia. I know that his ambition is to really have us expand throughout Africa. And he has the full law firm support behind him. We just did this in Latin America. Over the last 10 years, we went from having 3 offices to now having 28 in Latin America and Caribbean. That is our goal for Africa as well. And I would like someday to have you come and do the ribbon cutting with me and for our office in Liberia.
Well, I was thinking about that also. I think just a suggestion for Denton and for those watching here, and you heard it first year. I was thinking about it today when I was preparing for this conversation. What could Denton do in Liberia and West Africa or Africa rather when it comes to capacity building? There are a lot of law schools in Liberia, in Africa, there are 2 in Liberia, who could really benefit from some sort of what I would call it an internship where Denton lawyers or maybe Denton executives could maybe do some clinics in Liberia on the evolution of legal systems around the world. So maybe that's something I want to take up in our own frame, maybe do some pro bono work in terms of building capacity, because one of the challenges facing Liberia in the African countries is making sure that the legal system is not just written on paper, but it's also enforced. It is also understood by the average citizens, so they know what their rights are, the companies know what their rights are, and I think education around the legal framework, the legal system, so every single Liberian who gets electricity to understand what are the legal provisions for the electricity And the LEC, who's hosting this event, should also know that if there is power theft, for example, there will be laws on the books that are enforceable by the system to make sure that the laws are respected. So anything that you can share or even provide, I think will really be helpful for Liberia, but even for other African countries.
You know, we do social internships around the world, and I'd be happy to work with you on developing this concept.
Okay. Well, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Good. I thought I lost you. I was a little bit. Well, I think we've come to the end of this brief conversation. Just to strip the surface when it comes to regulatory or legal issues around that you find in the country. My final question for you is more broad, is broad. And it is about when you think of the world where it is today and the climate crisis and all the other geopolitical crises, there is sometimes a dark vision that people have. But you're an optimistic person. So when you look forward 10, 20, 30 years from now, what are the things that really excites you about providing universal access to electricity to everyone on this planet? Why is that something that you think is galvanizing and exciting? What excites you really around those two issues?
Well, we're both optimists. Lawrence, and it is a busy world, and there's a lot of things that we can be concerned about. But basically, I think the development of technology and the opportunities that now exist, not just in sub-Saharan Africa, but throughout the developing world, the opportunities are there, the technologies are improving. Countries really need electricity and power in order to become more advanced. And I think those opportunities are coming now and can come at scale. And so that's where I want to be putting a lot of my time going forward. You and I both serve in varying roles with the World Resources Institute. I believe that they will succeed in showing us paths to decarbonize and to have a cleaner energy transition. I look at our relationships around the globe within our law firm and how well we work together. And our firm, in each region, we don't have lawyers in Washington or New York or Chicago go and open up a firm. We combine with the top firm in each location, where we believe is the top firm, and their leadership stays intact. And that's how we have progressed. And I think the harmony we have is kind of an exemplar that this can be done. Probably a lot of the effort, Lawrence, is going to have to come at sort of the subnational level, because we can't always, government can move very slowly, but I think private sector, NGOs and others can move quickly, and I think you kind of coined the term many years ago of electricity diplomacy, and I see you living it. So you give me optimism.
Well, Glenn, thank you so much for taking your time to share with us here as part of this series of conversations that we hope will spur great interest in the development of the electricity sector. The reason why I wanted to focus on the legal framework is because it's one of those things that we hear very little about. Technology, we talk about business models. But I become a semi-lawyer, not a lawyer, but I spend my time with yourself and my other lawyer friends that think law is important where electricity is a function. So,
Really so.
yeah. Well, thank you so much, Glenn, and thanks for joining us. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for Washington, D.C.
Great to see you, Lawrence, this whole thing.
Okay.
is actually very interesting because one of the things we talk very little about is the legal system, is the legal framework. Think of one of the big issues facing most utilities, non-technical losses, power theft. One of the challenges most utilities have, not just in Liberia, is how to enforce the laws around power theft. Later on this afternoon, we're going to hear from a CEO from Barbados. He's going to be dialing in, and he will share some of their experiences on how they had to fix the legal system to be sure that if you steal power, there's a consequence. If you don't pay your bills, there's a consequence, and I think that's very important. So I think we're going to now go to Boston. We're going to have a quick chat with our colleague, Lami Sandogo. Lami, if you can hear us, can you turn your camera on? Lami, can you hear us?
So the conversation still goes here.
So Lami is probably, we can go back to the
Remember,
video.
it's
Come back to Lami.
speaking through the
That's what I
projector.
watched the video with Bob Lowe. Bob was mentioned several times. He's the CEO of Northwest Energy. It's a utility that almost mimics, he's a former CEO, I'm sorry. And Northwest almost mimics the LEC in its structure, which is why we wanted to hear from Bob to get his perspective on the whole issue of how electricity was brought to Montana. And then he will share some thoughts also as he has taken the time to really review what the LEC is doing. He will share some thoughts with you all here, and I think you'll find it very, very inspiring. So let's start beginning with Bob.
So still here to get this projector. So it's the composition
in background was his thought for his impact on how we can do electrification and not just Nigeria, but happening about life.
So today it's LEC holds a partnership with the EI, it's the LEC, it's the LEC Electric Institute, jointly hosts this all-important
Thank you very much.
perspective
Congratulations
to find
for your service
town hall
to the entire world on the mission